we live? Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? All right, it says we are live. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited to get the show started today. We are going to be talking about the length of your credit history and why that is important. This is part 3 of our series. So if you haven't seen the first 2, go back and watch them. Having a lot of fun with this. If you have any questions, I will answer your questions. You just throw them out there. I'm happy to help you and answer you. Anything you've got. So throw them my way and let's get started. All right. It's always fun making an intro video. You never know how it's going to go. And I actually kind of like the way that one turned out. So hopefully you guys do too. Welcome, welcome, welcome. First week, so a couple weeks ago, we started talking about your payment history. And then last week we talked about your amount owed or credit utilization. And today we're going to talk about the length of your credit history. And so the length of your history, I would say it generally starts to be leveling out as being a good length of history when you get about 7 years. That's about the time that the creditors are able to look and see a good window of how you've been doing on all your payments, making sure everything's on time, and it gives them a good idea as to how good of a person you are at making your bills pay on time. So this portion though is only worth 15% of your total score. So of that 550 points, it's worth less than 100 points. So while it is very important because all these parts do work together, it's only a fraction of what of your total score is. So it kind of like everything else in life, it's really easy or easier to know how to use things when you know how things are defined and how they're figured out. So on the length of your credit history, let's say you've got 3 different accounts. And let me pull up my numbers. There we go. So let's say you have a credit card that you open and it's 15 years old. Let's call that card A. Card B, you opened 5 years ago, and card C, you opened 4 years ago. So you've got these 3 different cards together. 15 plus 5 plus 4 is 24. So that's the total amount of years that you're able to show on this history. And then they divide that by the number of counts. So that would be 24 divided by 3 is 8. So what you're showing is an 8-year history for these 3 accounts. Now that's important, but why? Another reason that that's important to understand how that works is, let's say today that you're thinking, you know what, I need to add a 4th account. How is that going to impact my score? How is that going to impact the length of my credit history? So when you open up a new account, that would be a 0 added to 24. And now instead of 3, you're dividing it by 4. So you go from an 8-year history down to a 6-year history. So that's not a significant drop, and that's not a huge deal. But if you open multiple accounts, now you can see how that history will start to drop, and it'll drop fast, and that will start to affect your score. Now, it's also important to understand and keep in mind that this is only one of the 5 portions in which FICO figures your score. So you may only see this one, who's not a very big, heavily weighted category, slowly start to go down, but it is going to affect some of your other ones too. So again, they all tie hand in hand. So credit utilization and this history, if you're opening these new accounts and you start to drag your score down that way, but you don't actually charge on those accounts, now your ratio is better. So it may actually, it could raise your score. So when someone says, hey, what's the simple answer for this? The true and honest answer is all of our credit is different. There is no one answer for everything. And if there was, then anybody and everybody would be able to fix and maintain something, because it would all be on one equal playing field. But the truth of the matter is that these systems were developed to be able to give a full, well-rounded view of each individual consumer, how they manage their finances, how they manage their debt, and how they pay their bills. So, what I may do in a given month is totally different than my wife, and what my wife does is totally different than her sister. And that is why this complex formula, we try to simplify it, we try to understand it, but the way that these things all interweave with each other can complicate things and doesn't provide for super easy answers. So one way is that you can improve your credit history, which again, if you work on each one of these individual things, they're all going to start to tie into each other, and you're going to see your score go up. The first thing I would suggest that you never do or try to minimize doing is don't cancel your credit cards. Your credit cards, as long as you keep making positive payments, are going to continue to build history after history to history. And remember, you have to use your credit in order to build credit. So when I'm counseling a client, I'm not telling them, go out, let's get all these credit cards and let's start spending money because you have to use credit to build credit. No, do self-reflection. Know what kind of a spender you are. Don't put yourself in position to fail. If you're going to have a credit card in your pocket and it's going to be burning a hole in it and you need to spend money you don't have, then don't keep it in your pocket. Keep it in your closet. Keep it in your sock drawer. Keep it in a place where you have to intentionally grab it and be able to use it in that way. However, again, we want to be able to use it to build it. So, having said that, now I'm going to take this one card and I'm going to use it every single month for my cell phone bill because I'm not adding a new bill now. I'm taking an existing bill and I'm putting that on a credit card that is going to build my credit, and I'm going to pay that down every single month. Now, and the other thing, again, if we go back into credit utilization, is you're not going to want to pay that bill all the way off every month. I would suggest you leaving like 1%. So on $1,000 a limited card, leave $10. The amount of interest you're going to be paying is minimal, but that's also going to increase your score faster. The next tip I'm going to talk about for your payment history and how to build and maintain it is make sure your accounts stay active. Just because you have multiple different accounts does not mean that they just automatically stay open. There is a cost of doing business by the credit card companies to keep your accounts active. Now, they get paid in many different ways. We're not going to get into that, but I do want you to understand that you need to use your card about every 4 to 6 months just for it to stay active. Again, don't use it for things that you're going to get you in financial trouble. Know who you are, know how you're going to manage your money. Use it for your cell phone, use it for your water bill, your electric bill, your gas bill. Now, it used to be when you were paying your utilities, you had to physically write a check and mail it in. Nowadays, you can log into your account and have an account of record where you can just put a credit card there. Again, we're not creating new bills. I'm not trying to make you go further and further into debt. I'm trying to build you up. I'm trying to empower you so that when you get these new tools that you use them and use them in wise ways in which you're already spending your money. If you're doing it in a way you're already spending your money, we're not adding anything to it. We're just going to increase your score, which is going to allow you to get into a house where you have an asset. You're going to get into a newer car where you may not have surprise breakdowns, or at the very least, better interest, so you're not paying as much. So let me go back through. All right. Some so everything we've gone over is tied together. Um, Student loans is one of those things that in the credit repair or the credit industry is not really talked about, just because it's a government backed loan, and it's one of those things that um, it's you hate having such a big loan. It does affect your utilization, but it's also depends on how it's weighed, right? But especially right now with all of them being deferred due to COVID, we don't know when that's going to be turned back on because they keep pushing it back. One thing you need to keep in mind is even if you come into a large sum of money or you like only 3 more months it's paid off, once that is paid off, that account does go to close status and that will lower your score. So I'm not saying don't make your payments or worrying about paying it off, because obviously the least amount of debt you have is what's best for you. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is if you're going to make a major purchase, whether it be a car, whether it be a house, whether it be anything, a boat, an investment property, keep in mind where you're at on those payments and how many more you have left, so that you know that as that time quickly approaches, that you may see a dip or a significant dip in your credit score and know why that dip is coming. So you don't rush yourself into a decision, especially a financial one, but at least understand, hey, I'm going to be paying this loan, and for some of us, I got it out of college several decades ago. I've been making my minimum payment just because I want to keep that low interest rate, fixed interest rate credit history of 20 plus years consistent. Then when that's gone, that's going to significantly change the landscape of how my credit portfolio is built. So be aware of what's on your credit at all times. Make sure that you understand, hey, when things possibly will be dropping off, when you pay that car off, when you pay that house loan, or if you sell your house and go into a new one, when those accounts close and you open new ones, that's going to affect the length of your history. So again, having gone over what's going to help keep your history up, let's go over some things that could possibly bring your credit history down. As I explain how that credit history is calculated, opening multiple credit cards is going to start to significantly drop that history. So if you need a new one or you need more of a balance, keep your credit score high. Call the people that you already have accounts with and see if they'll either increase your limit, or a lot of times they may have another card. And before you get another card or start getting lots of cards, you need to start asking questions to the people that are issuing you these cards, because they have more answers and more programs than you're aware of. And you're never going to know about them unless you ask what they possibly are and how they can benefit you. And what I mean by that is if you've got a card, let's say with Capital One, because everyone knows who Capital One is, and you've been paying on it for 3, 4, 5 years, you need another card or you need an increase. They're unable to give you an increase. Then you say, okay, what can we do? Do you have another card I could qualify for? Well, we all know that Capital One will have multiple different types of credit cards, and they'll be able to look and see through their system if you may qualify for it. But the question you need to ask them before you authorize them to do anything is, will they need to make a hard pull on your credit, because that can in turn bring it down. But the majority of the time, and I use Capital One just because most everyone knows who they are, but regardless of the bank, there's normally more than one cards that are offered. And if you ask the right bank or get in a situation where you get the right representative on the phone and say, listen, this is where my needs are, they have a history of you being a good customer. They're not going to want to lose you. And a lot of times they're able to say, listen, we don't need to make a hard pull. We can do a soft pull. We can see that your credit history already with us is good enough. We're going to offer you another card. And that's not going to make your score go down. It's only going to make it go up. Um, do that once. Don't do it multiple times. That's why the word multiple times is in there when we're talking about opening multiple accounts and how that affects your history. The other thing that I think I've been working on getting my posts set up, because they're all automatic, for some credit tips. I was talking about unnecessarily closing credit accounts, and very few times that I can even think of would I recommend to someone to close an account. And the reason is you're going to lose that history, and even if it's annual fee situation, the amount of money that an annual fee is, what's $50, maybe 80 at the most. That dip, if you're right before making a major purchase in your credit score, you're going to spend way more than that in the added interest by just the loan that you're going to end up qualifying for. So the bottom line of this is the length of your history is not the most important factor in determining your FICO, but it does have a significant impact on your ability to obtain new credit when you need it. Again, all these things do tie in together so much that when you may lose a few points here and gain them there, so you don't see a significant change, but you need to understand how each one of these five things interact with each other, so that these five different areas, when you build them all up, will enable you to be easily over 700 points. And that's my goal for you. That's my goal for every one of my clients. So today's kind of a short one, just because as we're winding down on the series, this one is only 15% of your score. So it's pretty simple. The next two are only 10% each. So I may bring in some other articles, or bring in some business people to talk with. I haven't decided. It just depends on people's schedule. But I did a morning show this morning, and we talked a little bit about credit, and a lot about business, and a lot about actually going into politics. But guys, if you're watching, thank you. If you want to like it, share it, let other people know that I do go live every Monday. I'm finishing up the series in the next couple weeks, and then I'll figure out another series to do. But ultimately, I'm going to be going live to help you, to answer questions, to do what I can to help you reach your goals. If there are no other questions, we're going to end this. I'm going through a few other notes. Let me see. Other tips I can offer. Let's see here. This one's talked about a lot. Everyone always says, "What about if I become an authorized user?" So, that's what used to be considered a hack, a cheat, is to become an authorized user on somebody's account that has a significant history. Just realize when you get added as an authorized user on anybody's account that you're getting their good and their bad. It's not always going to be good. Just like when I tell people that you can use the law to have a fair and accurate credit report by doing deletions, by removing the inaccuracies. If you're not careful, you're going to remove positive stuff as well as the negative stuff, and you could do some significant damage to your credit. So understand what you're doing. If you don't, hire somebody that does. That's why we are here. That's why we do what we do, is we want to help minimize your risk, maximize your reward. So adding yourself as an authorized user, if you don't know them or trust them, don't do it, because you don't know what you're adding. If they start to go through, if they get laid off and they're starting to go through a rough patch, they're probably going to start using their cards just to stay afloat. So their debt to income ratio becomes part of yours, and their usage becomes part of yours, and that's going to always affect your score as well. You can get a secured card. Secured cards don't run hard checks, or at least the ones I recommend do. If you do get a secured card and you don't ask me of who I would recommend, that's great. Make your own decisions. Just know that not all secured cards are going to report to all three of the credit bureaus. And if you're not going to be doing something that's going to benefit you all the way around, then what's the point of doing it? Again, knowledge is power, or knowledge is potential power, as I like to say. Don't just gain all this knowledge and not use it. Act upon it, but do your research. Make sure every decision you make is strategic and purposeful. Another thing you could do is you could become a cosigner. Again, if you cosign because you've got decent credit and you're just trying to boost it up, then if they miss a payment, that also goes on you. So you have to be really strategic in your moves and make sure the people that you're dealing with are people that you trust. And some of this stuff is something that I would say would use for like your kids, because in training them and teaching them what credit is, how credit works, and that you have a vested interest, because you literally do. If you put your name on the dotted line next to theirs, you have a vested interest that all these payments are going to be made on time, because it's going to be affecting your score as well. Now, there's also credit builder loans and different kinds of loans. Those are good to help when you're building your credit. But in the grand scheme of the history and length of your credit, those all have a shelf life. Most of them are 24 months. So during those 24 months, you're building. At the point in which you plateau, or that those accounts start to expire because they've lived the length of that loan. When that does fall off, then so too will that history, and that's going to again affect the history. So the more accounts that you have, and the higher the history is on more of those accounts, the less an effect of something like a self-builder loan or your student loans is going to have, because the weight of the other ones are going to help carry some of those younger accounts. And that concludes all my notes on some tidbits on this. There's I really go back and watch the other two videos. If you have questions, those are the ones that 65% of your credit score is off of your payment history and off of your utilization. When we're getting into today, like the length of your credit history, and tomorrow or next week is new credit, and then we're going to end with the mix of credit. Those are only 10% each of these categories. And so the weight of those is not nearly as much. Do they impact it? Yes. Is it important to know and understand? Yes. I'm always going to say fill yourself with as much knowledge and education as you can, so that when you're making decisions in life, you're doing so understanding the repercussions of not doing something, and you understand how much influence this is going to affect your life. We've all made mistakes. Our lives are totally different today than they were pre-COVID. I dare you to find me somebody that says my life, everybody's life around me, or my life in particular, is the exact same as it was. I haven't noticed one thing change. Obviously, they don't fill up their cars with gas. They haven't seen anything change at the grocery store. So they're probably have their own garden in the back. And all of us are seeing changes. So it's a fair statement to make that who you were 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago is different than who you are today. And I want to fight to help you have a fair representation of who you are today. So when you apply for those new loans, when you apply for a car, for that dream home that you really want, that you're able to qualify, because when they go to look at that paperwork, they see who you are sitting before them and not who you were 5, 6, 7 years ago. Because we're all different people and we've grown and we've changed. So anyway, I don't see any comments. That concludes today's talk. If you have anything, feel free to send me a text message, private message me. Do whatever you need to get a hold of me. I will answer, and I will answer generally pretty quickly. If you're not subscribed or know that this is happening, please do, because every Monday I will be going live at 1 p.m. Central. All right, everybody. It's going to be a great week. God loves you. So do I. And we'll see you next week.